I used to believe, quite naively, that raising children was about passing down love, passing down warmth, wisdom, and the kind of unwavering care that only a parent could give. But standing here now, at 66, I've come to realize something far more unsettling. Sometimes raising kids isn't about passing down love at all. It's about bracing yourself for the day you might have to defend yourself from them. That thought settled in my chest, like the dull tip of a needle, small but relentless. My daughter-in-law Vanessa didn't bother with a phone call. No text, no polite conversation. Instead, she simply marched right into the house, with her parents in tow, and moved them straight into what had always been my master bedroom, like it was the most natural thing in the world. She smiled. Oh, that bright, saccharine smile of hers. Like she was offering everyone some sort of blessing. And then, as casually as someone might announce tomorrow's weather, she said, "Iris, you'll be moving into the guest room. My parents are getting older, and the master gets better sunlight. You know, it's healthier for them, their joints and all." I stood in the middle of the living room, my eyes darting between her and the luggage crowding the floor. A deep, hollow ache bloomed in my chest, cold and sharp. The afternoon sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, painting everything in soft gold, but not even that light could thaw the icy dread rising inside me. My gaze drifted toward what had once been my sanctuary, the master bedroom. Its door stood wide open, no longer suitcases. Mismatched floral linens and gaudy throw pillows had swallowed the space whole. Strangers had colonized my safe haven. And then my eyes shifted toward the so-called guest room, furniture shoved into crooked angles. My late husband's favorite wicker chair crammed against the wall, one leg wobbling as if it might collapse. The closet doors hung open, revealing my carefully folded sweaters crushed beneath someone's monstrous leopard print suitcase. My heart sank. Inch by inch it sank. It felt like there was no space left in this house for me. Not physically, not emotionally, not anymore. But I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I knew better. Arguing with Vanessa was like trying to nail jelly to a wall. Messy, pointless, exhausting. And as for my son, Caleb, oh sweet Caleb, he'd long since surrendered his backbone to the smooth, relentless steamroller that was his wife. Confronting him would only humiliate him, and in turn, backfire onto me. So that afternoon, while the four of them napped, sprawled like royalty on the sectional couch, their laughter and breathing filling the space I once called home, I quietly packed a suitcase. Small, discreet. They probably thought I was sulking. Throwing a little "She'll cool off," Vanessa would whisper. She always does. She'll come crawling back, tail between her legs, ready to cook dinner, babysit Liam, and be our emergency ATM again. How laughable. My name is Iris Bennett. I am 66 years old, a retired middle school art teacher. I've spent a lifetime teaching children about structure, about boundaries, about respect. Did they truly think I was so easy to push around? Oh, they've underestimated me, gravely, because the very first thing I did after walking out that door was call my lawyer. What they don't know, what they never even considered, is that I've already started the process to sell this house. Yes. The very one they live in, the one they've paraded around in as if it were theirs. What a cruel little surprise awaits them. My late husband passed away a few years ago. Cancer. A long, slow goodbye. Since then, it had just been me and Caleb. I could have stayed in my own home, lived quietly, contentedly, but no. I made the choice to move in with them. Back then, I told myself it made sense. I could help out, babysit Liam while they worked, cook meals, keep the house running smoothly. I told myself it would be a gift, a blessing, a way to keep family close. I carried that household, every day, tirelessly, paid the bills more often than not, babysat at all hours, cooked, cleaned, kept the fridge full. On the surface, we kept the peace. Vanessa and I exchanged smiles, sometimes even laughter, but it was a brittle harmony, a fragile performance. She was pretty. I'll give her pretty in that curated, sugar-coated way, her hair always sleek, her nails glossy, her handbags changing with the seasons. Gucci 1 month, Coach the next. She visited the salon more often than the grocery store. And the bill, more often than not, they came from my retirement checks. And whatever Caleb could scrape together. Oh, she was polite. Always polite. But the flicker of disdain in her eyes was impossible to miss. So subtle. So sharp. A thread-thin needle pricking straight through my gut. At dinner she'd tilt her head, smile sweetly and say things like, "Iris, the food's just a little salty. We're doing low sodium now. It's healthier." Then seconds later, she'd order greasy fried chicken and fries for Liam off some delivery app without blinking. She'd pick up my reading glasses from the coffee table, twirl them in her manicured fingers like they were some ancient relic, and laugh. "Oh my gosh, Iris, these are so outdated. One day I'll take you to get something trendier." But of course that promise dissolved the moment she stood up. I swallowed it. All of it. For Caleb's sake. For Liam. Because I didn't want to rock the boat. Not yet. And besides, this house, this 3-bedroom house we were living in, was bought with the savings my husband and I had scraped together over 35 years of teaching and saving. The title? It was in my name. My name. Back when Caleb and Vanessa first got married, I understood their financial strain. I opened my arms, my home, and said yes. I told myself 3 generations under one roof might even be a blessing. I never asked them for rent. Not once. More often than not, I even paid the utility bills. I truly believed that my giving, my time, my energy, my money, would earn me their gratitude, their respect. How foolish I was. About a month ago, Vanessa started floating little comments. Casual. Offhand. "Iris," she mused one evening, swirling her spoon through her soup, "my parents' house is practically falling apart. Freezing in winter. Humid like a swamp in summer." Her gaze didn't lift from her bowl. "And my dad's got rheumatism. Poor guy. The damp air makes it worse. And the doctor's over there. Ugh, don't even get me started." Then came the line. So soft, so gentle, but heavy as a stone wrapped in velvet. "I was thinking maybe they could stay with us for a while. Just until they get back on their feet." She said it like she was considering a new throw pillow for the couch. Like it was a minor detail. My chest tightened. Because this house has only 3 bedrooms. Caleb has 1. I have 1. And Liam has his own. Where exactly were they planning to squeeze 2 more adults? I tried to tread carefully. "Vanessa, I understand you're worried about your parents. I do. But we're already pretty tight on space. Where would they even sleep? This house isn't really designed for that many adults. Liam's got his own schedule too. And your parents, they're used to a very different lifestyle. It might be harder on them here than you think." She didn't argue. She didn't even look up. Just that same tight little smirk curling at the corner of her lips as she stirred her soup, her spoon tapping the edge of the bowl like a clock counting down. For a moment I thought maybe she'd drop it. Then came that day. I just finished teaching my creative writing class at the community college, a hobby I'd picked up to bring some color back into my life. On the way home, I stopped by the grocery store, picked up a few things. A proper dinner, I told myself. Something hearty. Maybe roast chicken, something warm. I pushed open the front door and froze. Massive suitcases were piled like mountains in the entryway, blocking the hallway. Loud, unfamiliar laughter floated in from the living room. The sound filled the space, my space, like someone had cracked open a window and let strangers drift inside. I slipped off my shoes, heart pounding, walked forward. There they were, sprawled comfortably across the living room. Sofa. 2 older strangers. The man, with salt and pepper hair and leathery sun-baked skin, sat like a king surveying his domain. The woman wore a faded floral blouse, her eyes sharp behind wire-framed glasses, scanning the room with the quiet calculation of someone deciding whether they liked the wallpaper. I knew them vaguely. I'd met them exactly once, at Caleb and Vanessa's wedding, and even then, it had been a handshake, a tight smile, and little more. Vanessa's voice trilled from the hallway the moment the door clicked behind me. "Iris, you're home." She practically skipped into the room, looping her arm through mine like we were old friends. Come meet my parents. It's going to be so great, all of us together under one roof. And then, as if she were commenting on the weather, she added, oh, by the way, I moved your things into the guest room. Figured we'd let my parents have the master bedroom. You know, they're light sleepers. The guest room's noisier. And that balcony in the master, all that sunshine, it'll be so much better for their health. It wasn't a conversation. It was a decree. I didn't even respond. Didn't trust myself to. My eyes drifted toward the master bedroom. My bedroom, now with the door ajar. I could see the edge of my vanity table, the one I'd used for over a decade, now cluttered with unfamiliar knickknacks. A plastic potted plant, hideous, fake, sat where my real one used to be. My photo frames, my books, my late husband's watchbox, all shoved aside, forgot, out of place. The houseplants I'd lovingly cared for, neglected in a corner. My old books, stacked haphazardly. Family albums, half buried under a pile of mismatched throw pillows. It hit me then, hard and cruel. This wasn't an accident. This was displacement. Not a conversation, not a compromise. An erasure. I glanced at Caleb, my son, my only son. He stood behind Vanessa, shifting awkwardly from one foot to the other, hands rubbing together, his lips opened, then shut, like a fish gasping on dry land. Mom, Vanessa, she meant well, he mumbled, not even looking at me. Meant well, meant well. What kind of twisted kindness pushes someone out of their own bedroom, out of their own life? The chill started in my toes and crawled up, wrapping itself around my spine. It felt like someone had poured a bucket of ice water over me, freezing me in place, but underneath it, a slow, burning rage smoldered, like a fire waiting for the right gust of wind. But I didn't explode. No, I inhaled, then exhaled. Stay calm, Iris. Not here, not now, not in front of them. Because arguing with Vanessa was like punching fog fruitless. And Caleb, poor spineless Caleb, he wouldn't defend me. Not even now, not even when the woman he married was dragging my dignity out to the curb like an old couch. No, raising my voice would only make me the villain in their story. I slipped my arm out of Vanessa's grip, looked her square in the eye. My voice came out as flat and cold as a news anchor, reading the weather. Got it. Then I walked toward the guest room, or what was now the guest room. The moment I stepped inside, I felt it. A wall, an invisible, solid wall. Like the door wasn't just wood, it was the barrier between me and them. I could still hear Vanessa and her mother giggling from the living room, laughing, chirping about curtain colors and whether a hanging chair would look nice on the balcony, discussing what herbs might grow out there in the sunlight. As if the master bedroom had always belonged to them, as if I'd never existed inside it. The guest room was chaos. My clothes were tossed in messy piles on the bed. My husband's favorite hardcover books, the ones he'd collected for years, were crushed beneath a heap of wrinkled sweaters. One photo frame had fallen face down on the floor. The corner of the glass cracked. I bent down, turned it over. It was a photo of us, me and my late husband. We were young in that picture, standing under the spring sun. His smile, God, his smile, it was so effortless, so full of life. My chest clenched as if a fist had wrapped around my heart and squeezed. But still, not a sound escaped my lips. A knock. Caleb stood at the doorway, hands stuffed in his pockets, looking small, like a little boy caught stealing cookies. His voice was thin, uncertain. Mom, please don't take it the wrong way. Vanessa, she didn't mean anything by it. I didn't look at him, just murmured quietly. No need to explain. I understand. Because of course I did. I saw it, all of it. Vanessa's games, her absolute disregard for me, for the woman whose name was on the deed, for the mother of the man she married, and Caleb, my own son, so passive, so quiet, so eager to avoid the slightest wave, that he would rather let his own mother be shoved aside than dare speak a word in her defense. But the real heartbreak, it wasn't the bedroom, it wasn't the boxes or the broken frame. It was this, standing in front of my son, the person I raised, and knowing deep in my bones that he wouldn't say the one sentence I needed most. Mom, this is your home. That afternoon, Vanessa took her parents out, probably to tour the neighborhood, maybe to show off her conquest. Caleb vanished, not long after. He didn't say where he was going. I imagined him holed up in some coffee shop, pretending the mess unfolding at home didn't exist. Typical. The moment the door clicked shut behind them, I stood alone in the guest room, staring at the clutter. My hands trembled, not with sadness, not even with rage anymore. No, what I felt was clarity. Cold, sharp, clean. I quietly opened the closet, pulled down my old suitcase from the top shelf, the same suitcase I'd used when Caleb was little, for family trips back when we were still a family. Funny, how heavy something so small could feel now. I didn't pack much, just the essentials, my ID, some jewelry, the most important documents, a few changes of clothes, and that photo in the cracked frame, the one of me and my husband, young and smiling beneath a spring sun. I wrapped it carefully in a towel and tucked it at the bottom of the suitcase like something sacred. Clothes, toiletries, furniture. I left it all. Let them have it. They already thought the house was theirs anyway. They had no idea what was coming next. I pulled out my phone, thumb hovering over my contacts for a moment, then tapped a name. Miriam, my sister. She picked up on the second ring. Her voice came through warm, familiar, tinged with concern. Iris, everything okay? I took a breath, forced my tone light. Hey Miriam, I was wondering, remember that cleaning service you mentioned a while back? The one you said was really thorough. Do you still have their number? There was a pause, just long enough for her to piece it together. Iris, did something happen? Did Vanessa pull something again? It's nothing serious, I said, smooth as silk. I'm just thinking it's time to go back to my old place in Brookhaven. It needs a deep clean before I move in. Silence stretched. Then her voice softened. All right. Yeah, I've got the number. I'll text it to you. We didn't say more. Some things don't need to be shared, not even with your own sister. Airing out family's dirty laundry only spreads the stink around. The moment we hung up, I called the cleaning service and scheduled a full deep clean for the next morning. Once that was set, I zipped up my suitcase, rolled it out of the guest room, and stood at the threshold of the living room. The timing was perfect. The front door burst open. Vanessa, her parents, and Caleb swept in, carrying bags, fruits, groceries, some kind of potted plant. Her mother's high-pitched laughter echoed off the walls. Vanessa's eyes locked onto my suitcase in an instant. Her mouth twitched, not surprise, not concern. Triumph, thinly veiled, but there. Oh, heading out for a little trip, Iris. Her voice was sugar-sweet, but laced with that unmistakable tang of satisfaction. I didn't bother looking directly at her, just slipped on my shoes, cinched the suitcase handle tighter, and replied, going to stay with Miriam for a bit. Her smile didn't falter. Well, that's great. A little break will do you good. But her eyes said the thing her mouth never would. Exactly as planned. Off you go. Stay out of the way. She thought I was sulking, throwing a harmless tantrum. She figured I'd cool off, come crawling back and resume my role as unpaid babysitter, maid, cook, therapist, and on-call emergency fund. Poor thing. She really had no idea. From behind me, Caleb's voice cracked through the tension. Mom, wait. Are you really leaving? I turned, startled. I hadn't noticed him creeping in behind me. His face was pale, his hands half raised, like he wanted to stop me, but didn't quite know how. Vanessa shot him a sharp glance. It was subtle, but powerful. A silent command. Stand down. And like clockwork he obeyed. His shoulders sagged. His mouth closed. His gaze dropped to the floor. His hands fell limp at his side. In that moment, watching him flounder between guilt and obedience, I realized something. Where Vanessa's eyes held contempt, Caleb's held something worse. Resignation. Where do you think you'll go? Vanessa asked, feigning concern but failing to hide the edge in her voice. You've got no money, no support. You'll come back. You always do. And when you do, She smiled sweetly. We'll decide what's left for you. I almost laughed. People like her never stop pushing. You give an inch, they take the road, the sidewalk, the whole city block, until you're pressed so far back there's no space left to breathe. But not me, not anymore. I didn't answer, didn't grace them with so much as a goodbye. I opened the door, stepped outside, and left them with one final line. I'm going back to my own home. You can manage things from here. The door clicked shut behind me. A sound sharper, louder, more final than any slam. Downstairs, a cab was already waiting. I slid into the back seat, gave the driver the address, and sat back as the city slipped past the window. The streetlights blurred into streaks of amber and gold. My suitcase rattled quietly on the seat beside me, and for the first time in what felt like years, I didn't feel sad, not even close. What I felt was something far rarer, something lighter than air. Freedom. When your heart's been broken long enough, there's nothing left to break. There comes a time when pain doesn't bring tears anymore. It brings clarity. This wasn't an escape. It was an awakening. My house, the one I was returning to, sat in an older neighborhood on the west side of Brookhaven. A modest 2-bedroom, 1 bath. Not much to look at from the outside, but the location was good. The neighbors familiar. The walls steeped in years of memories. Most importantly, it was mine, completely, truly. Of course, no one had lived there in years. The dust was thick. The air smelled of old paper and damp wood. The moment I unlocked the door and stepped inside, it hit me, stale, but comforting. I didn't mind. It was still the only place I wanted to be. The next morning, the cleaning crew arrived right on time. 4 of them. Efficient, unbothered by the cobwebs or the mountain of dust. They worked through the afternoon, scrubbing, sweeping, vacuuming every corner, every crack, every hidden layer of neglect. By the time they left, the whole place gleamed, like the house itself was waking up after a long sleep. I opened every window, let the sunlight pour in, let the fresh air sweep through, chasing away the mustiness of years gone stale, and for the first time in so long, my life started to feel like mine again. I spent the next few days settling in, one slow, deliberate step at a time. It was strange how comforting the silence felt here. No footsteps stomping down the hallway, no clipped remarks about sodium or clutter, no passive-aggressive sighs from across the kitchen table, just quiet. The familiar furniture stood waiting for me, patient and unsure. It was old, the edges worn, the cushions a little flattened, but every scratch, every faded patch, carried a memory, a story of the life I'd built with my late husband. This was home, not the place I'd left behind, not the house Vanessa had clawed her way into. Here, the air felt different, lighter. I could breathe. I started placing things back where they belonged. My husband's photo went on the nightstand, exactly where it had always sat. I found the orchid plant, the same one Vanessa had shoved into a corner like junk, and moved it to the brightest spot on the balcony. The sun hit its leaves just right, like the plant itself sighed in relief. Piece by piece I stitched my life back together. I signed up for an oil painting class at Brookhaven Community College, something I'd always wanted to do but never made time for. I texted a few retired friends, set up morning walks by the lake, coffee dates, long meandering conversations about nothing and everything. The ache in my chest that used to sit there like a stone, gone. Even walking felt easier. Nights were the sweetest of all. I brewed chamomile tea, turned on an old movie, or curled up with one of the novels I'd started but never finished. And when my eyelids grew heavy, I went to bed, not out of exhaustion, but because I wanted to. And for the first time in years, I slept deeply, peacefully, no insomnia, no tension knotting between my shoulders. Freedom had a taste, and it was delicious. Of course, Caleb called a few times in the first week. His voice was thin, nervous, like a teenager calling home after staying out past curfew. "Mom, you doing okay over there? When do you think you might, come back for a visit?" Each time my answer was gentle, firm as oak. I'm doing just fine in my own home. You take good care of Liam. Short, simple, unshakable. Once, twice, 3 times. Eventually, even Caleb understood. Or maybe Vanessa got tired of watching him fail and gave him that look, the one that turned him to stone. The calls grew less frequent, then rare, until all that remained were the obligatory texts. Happy Thanksgiving, Mom. Or how's your health? I didn't mind. I used to believe that happiness in old age was tied to watching your children thrive, that their success was your reward, their comfort, your purpose. But now I knew the truth. Real happiness is a warm cup of tea, money in your own bank account, silence in your ears, and most of all, freedom. Freedom from people who think you owe them every piece of yourself, until there's nothing left but scraps. Vanessa, though, she wasn't coping well. Her entire plan had hinged on me crumbling, on loneliness sinking its claws into me until I came crawling back, begging for purpose, for company, for scraps of affection. But the days turned into weeks, and I didn't return. I didn't call. I didn't ask for anything. Her trap had sprung, but there was no prey inside. At first, she sent Caleb, soft, cautious, playing the concerned son. Mom, we've been thinking. It'd be nice if you came by. Liam misses you. We miss you. I stayed steady, unmoved. Then, when that didn't work, Vanessa cracked. She called me herself. The moment I picked up, I heard it, that breathy, syrupy tone she always used when trying to sound sweet, like melted sugar, hiding the bite of vinegar underneath. Iris, we've just been so worried, With you living alone and all, Liam keeps asking about you every day. I let her words hang in the air. Didn't feed them, didn't reject them either. Just a soft, non-committal, She paused. I could almost hear her calculating her next move. When she spoke again, the thread of impatience was barely hidden beneath her velvet tone. Iris, ever since my parents moved in, expenses have, really gone up. When you were here, you helped out. But now, with you living so comfortably, and us struggling to manage everything ourselves, there it was. The mask slipping, the tail of the fox peeking from behind the curtain. Money. Always about money. Her voice turned soft again. My dad, the physical therapy costs are sky high. And Liam's music lessons, the new semester's tuition is due next week. Things are tight, very tight. We were wondering if, maybe just for now, you could help us out a little. We're family, after all. And family, we look out for each other. I sat back in my chair, a slow, amused smile tugging at the corners of my mouth. Is that so? I said, voice perfectly even. Then I suppose it's time you and Caleb sit down and work out a proper budget. Silent. It was like she'd swallowed her own tongue. She wasn't expecting that. Not from me. No, Iris. I mean, you've got a good pension, right? Maybe, just for now, a little help. Until things settle down. You know how much we've done for each other. I let the word echo. Each other. Slowly, deliberately. I let the weight of it sink between us. Vanessa, I said, letting her name slice clean through the tension. My pension comes from a lifetime of work. A lifetime of sacrifice. It's mine. Meant for me. Only me. But no. Listen close. You and Caleb made the decision to move your parents into my house. Without asking. You thought it was yours to take. Now you get to live with that decision. You made it. You live with it. But don't you dare look to me to cover the bill. There was a sharp inhale, then a stammer, but I didn't wait for her to spit out whatever manipulation was coming next. I hung up, and for the first time in my entire life, maybe ever, I felt it. That click of the phone ending the call. It sounded like freedom, like the slam of a jail cell door, but I was the one walking out. I set the phone down on the kitchen counter, my fingers trembling, not from fear, but from something sharper, stronger. a kind of clarity that felt almost foreign after years of swallowing disappointment, years of smiling through gritted teeth. But that clarity, it was addictive. Of course, Vanessa didn't take my refusal lying down. Oh no, people like her, they never run out of tactics. The sweet talk had failed. So she pivoted the way people like her always do, to manipulation through others. It started with a call from Caleb's Aunt Laura, a woman I hadn't spoken to in years unless it involved family holidays or group photos. The moment I answered, her voice swooped in, full of self-righteous indignation. "Iris, what is going on over there? I heard you just stormed out. What are you thinking? Living alone at your age? Caleb and Vanessa are doing their best. They're family. You're the mother. It's time to take the high road. Don't stoop to petty bickering with your daughter-in-law." I nearly laughed. But I let her rant, her voice climbing higher with each sentence, her words tightening around me like vines trying to drag me back into a role I had long since shed. The ever-forgiving, ever-giving mother. Then came Zoe, my niece. Her tone was softer, cautious, like someone approaching a wounded animal. "Aunt Iris, Uncle Caleb told me what happened. Look, I know Vanessa can be a lot sometimes. But don't take it so hard, okay? We're just worried about you. You've always been the heart of the family. Maybe, just talk things through. You know how families are. Oh, how polite. How diplomatic. As if I were the stubborn one refusing to just talk it out. At first I felt it. That tight knot in my chest. That old, familiar pull. The one that says, be the bigger person. Keep the peace. Don't let them say you were the problem. And then, I laughed. Soft. Dry. Almost bitter. Because, not one of them, not one, had asked me what actually happened. They weren't interested in the truth. They were interested in restoring the version of family that worked for them. The version where I was predictable. A well-oiled cog in the machine that kept everything running. I responded as kindly as I could to the ones who truly sounded concerned. "Thanks for checking in. I'm doing well. Just needed space. Needed to take care of myself for a change." But for the others, the ones running Vanessa's script, I didn't hold back. "She's having a hard time." I snapped when Laura made her third attempt to guilt me. "Really? You think I had it easy when she moved her parents into my bedroom, shoved my belongings into a closet and smiled like it was an act of charity? And now she wants my money on top of that. If you think she's such a saint, go ahead, write her a check." A sharp inhale. Then silence. The calls slowed after that. Apparently, even gossip has its limits when you serve it back cold and unseasoned. But that flurry of phone calls did something important for me. It reminded me that this wasn't over. Not really. Vanessa wasn't the type to back off quietly. If anything, this would escalate. She'd twist the story, rewrite the narrative, poison every ear that would listen until I was the villain in their tale, the bitter old mother-in-law who abandoned her family. I couldn't let that happen. No, it was time to stop reacting. It was time to act. I pulled out my phone, opened my text messages, and scrolled back months, even years. Every chat thread with Vanessa was littered with subtle digs, veiled complaints, and manipulative little hints. "Iris, the roof needs repair again. You think maybe you could help out with that? Hey, we're a little short this month, with Liam's school supplies and all. Oh, the electric bill came in. It's a lot. Just letting you know." Every message was dressed in politeness but lined with expectation, the kind that assumes you'll say yes, because you always do. I took screenshots, dozens of them. Every line of guilt, every backhanded request, every breadcrumb she'd laid over the years, leading me exactly where she wanted to serve. I saved them into a folder on my desktop titled Receipt. Then I picked up the phone and called an old neighbor from Brookhaven, someone who still lived on the block where the house stood. We made small talk, asked about each other's health. Then I casually dropped the question. "So, the house must feel lively now that I'm not there. Must be quite the scene with Vanessa's parents moving in." Her voice lowered immediately, the tone people use when gossip is too juicy to resist. "Oh, Iris, you wouldn't believe. She's been strutting around like she owns the place. Keeps telling everyone it'll be hers soon anyway. She said, "Don't worry. The house is practically ours. It's just a matter of time." I closed my eyes, let the words settle. They didn't sting. Not anymore. If anything, they confirmed everything I already knew. But the best part? Neighbors are nosy. Nosy enough that one of them had recorded Vanessa standing on the sidewalk one afternoon, hands on hips, declaring loud enough for the whole street to hear, "She's old. She can't live forever. We'll have the house." Just unlike clockwork, a voice clip landed in my inbox by evening. Clear as crystal, her voice, her words, undeniable. That night, I made one more call, this time to someone I hadn't spoken to in a while but always trusted. Samuel, an old friend, a retired family lawyer. He'd handled enough ugly inheritance disputes and financial abuse cases to know exactly how this game worked. I wasn't calling to start a war, not yet, but I needed to understand my rights, my leverage. I needed to know how solid the ground under my feet truly was. I told him everything, laid it all out, start to finish. When I was done, he was quiet for a long moment. Then his voice came through steady, measured. "Iris, I've handled a lot of cases like this, more than I wish I had. You are in a far stronger position than you realize. You hold every card." For the first time since this nightmare started, a smile tugged at the corner of my mouth. A real one, not one forced through gritted teeth. "Good," I said softly, "because I intend to play them." At the start of the second month, the cracks in Caleb and Vanessa's carefully curated life began to show, exactly as Samuel had predicted. Without their live-in maid, their personal nanny, their emergency ATM, the pressure mounted faster than even I expected. The bills piled up. Grocery deliveries became less frequent. Vanessa, of course, kept spending like nothing had changed. New handbags, eyelash appointments, takeout 3 times a week, as though the universe itself owed her this lifestyle. And having her parents under the same roof, that wasn't the easy free ride she'd imagined. The old couple came with their own expectations, their own rhythms. They were early risers, bed by 8. They preferred bland food, constant quiet, rigid routine. They couldn't stand the noise from Liam's video games, or the sound of Vanessa's late-night reality shows blaring from the living room. Tension grew quickly, fast enough that even the neighbors started noticing. Vanessa began snapping, at her parents, at Caleb, at Liam, even the dog. "Poor thing. Are you guys here to visit, or here to drive me insane?" She barked one evening loud enough for half the block to hear. Her mother snapped back about how ungrateful she was, while her father grumbled about wanting to move back to their crumbling home just for some peace and quiet. And Caleb, well, he did what Caleb always did. Nothing. Not a word. Not a line drawn. Just silence, as if keeping quiet would somehow keep everything from falling apart. Until it didn't. Until one gray Tuesday afternoon, a knock sounded at my door. I opened it, and there stood Caleb. If guilt had a face, it would have been his. He looked like a ghost, dark circles under his eyes, hair limp, shoulders slumped like someone who hadn't slept in days. He clutched a paper coffee cup in one hand, squeezing it like it might collapse. "Mom, can I come in?" His voice was barely above a whisper. I stepped aside without a word. He collapsed onto the couch like someone who hadn't sat in weeks. His head fell into his hands. "Mom, I can't do this anymore," he choked out. It's a nightmare. Vanessa's losing. Her parents are driving her crazy. We fight every day. The money's a mess. I don't even know how we're going to make rent next month. The stress. I can't sleep. I can't think. It's like everything's broke. I sat in my chair, hands folded neatly in my lap, calm, quiet. I waited for the part I was coming. And right on cue, he said it. "Mom, can you, maybe, just for a little while help us? Come back. Maybe lend us something. Anything. We're falling apart. Please." A part of me stirred then. That old, worn piece of me. The mother in me. The one that wanted to fix, to help, to soothe. But it didn't last. because underneath it was something deeper, colder, stronger, disappointment, bone-deep, marrow-soaking disappointment. Because even now, sitting here begging, he wasn't saying what mattered, not "I'm sorry," not "I was wrong," just "help." I stood, walked to the kitchen, poured him a glass of water, carried it back, set it on the table in front of him. "Drink," I said softly. He did. When the glass was empty, I sat back down, let my eyes rest on him, really look at him. Then I spoke, quiet, steady, not cruel, not sharp, just final. "Caleb, your life is the one you chose." His head jerked up, eyes wide. When Vanessa moved her parents into my home, without asking, when she shoved me into the guest room, when she smiled while doing it, if you had said even one word, just one word to stop it, this wouldn't be happening. He opened his mouth, but I held up a hand. "No, let me finish. You chose silence. You chose to back down. And now, you get to choose what to do with the consequences." The color drained from his face. "As for money," I continued, my voice steady as stone, "don't ask me again. Go home. Tell your wife this. My money is for me alone. Don't expect another dime, ever." His lips trembled. His hands fluttered like he didn't know whether to reach for me or bury his face in them. No words came, just a hollow, broken silence. I stood, walked to the front door, opened it. "Go home, Caleb." For a second, he just sat there, staring at the floor like it might hold the answers to a test he'd never studied for. Then slowly, like a man walking away from a bad bet, he stood, shuffled to the door. He didn't look back. I closed it behind him, and stood there, back against the wood, breathing, in, out, heavy, but beneath that weight was something else. Something sturdier. Clarity. For the first time in a very, very long time, I knew exactly what needed to be done. Not for them. For me. I walked across the living room, picked up my phone, scrolled to the name I'd saved under Plan B, pressed call. It rang twice. Then, "Hello, this is Samuel." "Samuel. It's Iris. About what we discussed last time. I've made up my mind." There was a pause, a careful pause, the kind lawyers use when weighing whether someone is acting out of impulse or intent. "Are you sure, Iris? You've been hesitant. Caleb is your only child, after all." My answer was quick, sharp, solid. "I've made my decision." Silence again. But this time it was a different kind. Then Samuel's voice shifted into something brisk, professional, efficient. "All right. Let's move forward with revising your will. I'll prepare the necessary documents. We'll make it airtight." "Good." When the call ended, I sat in the sunlight of my little living room. The warmth poured in across the floorboards, touching the framed photo of me and my husband, the one I'd set right where it always used to be. And I whispered quietly to no one but myself, and maybe to him, wherever he was, "It's time." The next morning, I called Samuel again. This time, my voice didn't waver. It didn't falter. Not even a little. "Samuel, I've made one more decision." A brief pause. "All right. What is it?" "I want to sell the house. The one in Silverwood. The one Caleb and Vanessa are living in." A longer pause this time. Then his voice came through, smooth, steady, but laced with surprise. "You're certain?" "I've never been more certain in my life." By noon, I was sitting in his office. The paperwork was laid out in front of me, crisp and official, black ink on white paper, authorization of sale, removal of occupants from title access, full transfer of ownership rights. I picked up the pen. My hand didn't shake, not even a little. Letter by letter, I signed my name. Iris Bennett. No hesitation, no regret. When I set the pen down, Samuel slid the papers into a folder and tapped the corner of it with a satisfied nod. "Legally, you have full authority. You are the sole owner. They have no claim. I'll personally oversee every step to ensure they can't interfere." I nodded, slowly, let the reality settle, like sunlight soaking into my skin. Freedom, real freedom, not just emotional, but tangible, documented, legal. That afternoon, Samuel and I drove together to the Silverwood Property Management Office. I handed over my ID, a copy of the deed, and the official legal authorization. "I'm here to retrieve the spare keys," I told the manager, my voice calm as still water, "and I need to remove Caleb Bennett and Vanessa Bennett from the registered occupant list." The manager blinked, flipping through the documents. Her eyebrows lifted slightly. "Do they know that you're selling the property?" I gave a polite, faint smile. "They will, very soon." Telling them would have been a courtesy. Not telling them, that was my right. That night, I contacted a reputable real estate agency. A sharp, no-nonsense woman named Elaine showed up the next morning, mid-40s, hair slicked back in a tight bun, wearing a blazer sharp enough to slice bread. When I explained the situation, her grin was quick and fierce. "No mortgage? No co-signers? Sole ownership?" "Correct." She cracked her knuckles like she'd just been handed a gift. "Excellent. I love a clean title. We'll have this on the market by Friday." Photos, walkthroughs, listing, everything. And she did. In less than 48 hours, the listing was live. Bright, airy photos. A cheerful description: prime Silverwood property. Move-in ready. Motivated seller. Perfect for young families or investors. By the following Saturday, the first showing was scheduled. Vanessa happened to be home that day. At first, she hovered near the hallway, peeking out like a curious cat. Watching a young couple step through the front door with the real estate agent, she probably assumed they were neighbors, friends, something innocent. Until she heard the agent's cheerful voice echo from the kitchen. "This property's in a fantastic location. No liens, no mortgage. Fully owned by the seller. The title is clean. They're expecting offers quickly. It's a rare find." Vanessa's face turned from confusion to horror in the space of a heartbeat. She stormed into the living room, planting herself between the buyers and the agent. "Who are you people? Who gave you permission to be here?" she snapped, hands on hips. The agent, cool as ever, didn't even flinch. She pulled out the signed authorization letter from her folder and spoke with a calm, practiced smile. "We're here on behalf of Ms. Iris Bennett. She's the sole registered owner of this property. Management has verified our access. We're conducting a scheduled showing." Vanessa's mouth opened, closed, opened again, her hands balled into fists. "What the hell are you talking about? We're living here. You can't just..." The couple, clearly uncomfortable, leaned toward the agent and whispered, Is everything okay?" The agent nodded briskly. "Perfectly fine. No tenants on the lease. The title is clear. This is a standard showing." Vanessa's complexion changed colors. Pale, flushed, then blotchy red. She yanked out her phone, fingers shaking as she stabbed at the screen. No doubt dialing Caleb. Meanwhile, I imagined the neighbors peeking through their blinds, ears practically glued to their window. Silverwood was the kind of neighborhood where drama traveled faster than Wi-Fi. That same afternoon, my phone rang. Caleb. His voice was frantic, tight. Mom, is this some kind of mistake? The house, the listing. Tell me it's a mistake." "No mistake," I said, my tone light as air. "It's being sold. But, we're still living here. You can't just..." His voice cracked. "You said it yourself," I replied, calm, firm. "It was temporary. Remember?" Silence. Heavy. Waited. Then a soft, almost broken whisper. "Vanessa's losing it." I didn't respond, just let the silence stretch. They should have lost it months ago. Not now. On the third week, the agent called me, voice crisp with satisfaction. "I've got a solid offer. Full cash buyer. No contingencies. Ready to close fast. Shall I lock it in?" "Yes," I replied. Immediately. The day the buyer came to sign, Vanessa pulled one last desperate stunt. She stationed herself at the neighborhood entrance, blocking the driveway. Tears streaked down her face, makeup smeared, panic oozing from every pore. "You can't do this. You can't sell the house out from under us, she shrieked at the buyers. We've lived here for years. This is our home. She even called the police, screaming something about malicious eviction. 2 officers showed up, calm, professional. They took one look at the deed, one look at the signed documents. Then one of them turned to Vanessa with a voice flat as concrete. This is private property. The registered owner has the legal right to sell. You're not tenants. You're not on the title. You'll need to vacate. That was when her face truly crumbled. Her entire mask, the smugness, the entitlement, the fake sweetness, shattered like glass hitting pavement. Caleb arrived not long after. He tried pulling her away, whispering something, but she shoved him off and screamed. Where were you this whole time? Your mother's thrown us out and you've done nothing. I wasn't there to witness it. I didn't need to be. Samuel handled the delivery of the official notice. This property has been sold. All non-title occupants are required to vacate within 14 days. Failure to comply will result in legal action for forcible eviction. This wasn't revenge. It was consequence. They pushed me out of the master bedroom and into the corner. I simply returned the favor by showing them the door. The following week, Vanessa still hadn't given up. She showed up at my doorstep with Caleb in tow. A harsh morning sun poured down on them, throwing every line of tension on their faces into sharp relief. Caleb stood there like a man who had aged a decade in a month. Hollowed eyes, shoulders slumped, hands buried deep in his pockets like he was trying to disappear into himself. Vanessa, on the other hand, hid behind oversized sunglasses. Her lips were pressed into a thin line, her arms crossed so tightly across her chest it looked painful. I didn't open the door all the way, just enough for them to see my face, the boundary between us clear and Caleb was the first to speak, his voice small. Mom, can we talk? I didn't step aside, didn't gesture for them to come in. I stood there with one hand resting on the doorframe, steady as stone. Vanessa removed her sunglasses. Her eyes were red, either from crying or from lack of sleep, maybe both. For a moment, her voice softened, threadbare, brittle. Iris, we don't have anywhere to go. We were wrong, okay? Just think about Liam. He's used to this house. His friends are there, at least. Let him stay. Caleb and I, we can figure something out. But let Liam stay where he feels safe. Her words trembled, stitched together with just enough vulnerability to seem real. For a split second, even I wondered, was this sincere? But no, it wasn't about Liam. It never had been. This wasn't about the child's stability or comfort. This was about them not wanting to face the consequences of the life they built on someone else's back. I didn't move, didn't soften. My voice stayed calm, level. You are 2 fully grown adults, I said. Don't stand here and tell me you can't find a rental. This isn't about Liam needing a home. This is about you not wanting to face the reality of what you did. Vanessa bit her lower lip so hard I thought for a moment she might draw blood. The cracks in her performance began to show. So you're really going to be this heartless? She hissed, her voice dropping the shaky pretense. Sharp, poisoned. I met her gaze squarely. Heartless? I repeated, letting the word roll slowly off my tongue. Was it heartless when you moved your parents into my house without asking? When you shoved me into the guest room, my own home, and smiled while doing it? She blinked, swallowed, said nothing. She turned her eyes to Caleb, expecting him to say something. Anything. To intervene. To play the dutiful son, the mediator, the fixer. But Caleb just stood there, silent. His lips parted like he wanted to speak, but no words came. He simply stared at the ground like it might open up and swallow him whole. So I reached to the small table beside my doorway, picked up a sealed envelope and held it out to him. This is the formal letter from Samuel. The property sale has closed. The title now belongs to the new owners. You have 5 days to vacate. If you don't, the buyers will file for forced removal. Caleb took the envelope with shaking hands. His eyes were glassy, wet, but whether it was from shame or grief or panic, I didn't know. Vanessa's mask shattered completely. Her voice pitched high, shrill. You're so cruel, she spat. Just wait. When you're old, sick, alone, let's see who's there for you then. I didn't flinch, Not this time. My voice was glass, smooth, brittle, and cutting. I would rather grow old alone than stand in a house full of people who treat me like an ATM machine, who smile to my face while emptying my pockets behind my back, who only remember I exist when they need something. I won't miss that. I won't miss you. I paused, let the silence hang between us, then added one last line, simple, plain, absolute. Don't worry. I won't need you. I've already made all my plans for retirement. Vanessa opened her mouth like she was going to say something. Maybe another insult, maybe another plea, but no sound came, just a sharp breath. Her face twisted, jaw clenched. She spun on her heel, stormed down the steps, yanked open the car door so hard it rattled on its hinges, and slammed it shut with a screech that made the neighbor's curtains twitch. The engine roared. The tires squealed. Gone. Caleb lingered for one more beat. His shoulders sagged, his head hung low. But he didn't look back, didn't say a word. He walked down the steps like a man being marched to the gallows. The moment the car door shut behind him, I closed my front door, pressed my back against it, let out a long, slow breath. Not a sigh of regret, not sorrow, just release, freedom. A week later, I got a text from my realtor. They've started packing. Word is, they have nowhere to go. They're asking if you'd consider postponing the handover. My response was 2 words. Absolutely not. Friday morning, I received a call from the buyer's attorney, confirming that the moving crew was scheduled to arrive the next day. His voice was calm, practical. If the house isn't vacated, he said, we'll initiate formal proceedings for forcible removal. Should be straightforward. Perfect. I replied. Thank you. When the call ended, I sat by my window, sipping coffee, watching the old locust tree sway in the wind. Its roots deep, its branches wide. The same tree that had seen years of my life go by. Good seasons, bad ones. But it stood, steady, unmoved. By noon, the next day, the neighborhood group chat lit up like fireworks. I wasn't even surprised. Screenshots of messages, videos, updates flying back and forth like gossip-fueled confetti. Vanessa's outside yelling at the movers again. I heard Iris finally sold the house. Guess she wasn't bluffing. Told you nobody gives away a house like that for free. One neighbor even filmed a short clip and sent it to me. There she was, Vanessa, stomping around the sidewalk screeching at the movers. Be careful with that box. That has my skincare in it. Don't touch that cabinet. I said don't touch it. Caleb sat crouched by the wall, phone to his ear, looking pale, hollow, surrounded by half-sealed boxes, suitcases bursting open, and laundry scattered across the driveway. Liam sat on the curb, silent, a small dog in his lap, watching everything unfold. As for Vanessa's parents, the very same people who had once lounged smugly in my master bedroom, they were now crouched in the hallway, trying to tape up a broken chair, their faces drawn, tight, defeated. No one was helping them, because no one owed them anything. Word spread fast, as it always does in neighborhoods like Silverwood. By evening, half the block knew. By morning, the other half had caught up. I heard through the grapevine that they'd managed to find a cramped, overpriced walk-up apartment in the suburbs. No elevator, barely enough room to breathe, let alone stretch. A 2-bedroom squeezed into less space than my Brookhaven kitchen. A far cry from the spacious comfort of the house they'd once treated like their birthright. Liam's extracurriculars, canceled, defaulted on payments. Caleb and Vanessa had maxed out at least 3 credit cards, desperately patching holes in a ship that had already sunk. And as for their marriage, well, the fighting escalated fast. At first it was whispered arguments behind closed doors, then slammed doors, then loud, shrill shouting loud enough for neighbors to complain. Vanessa accused Caleb of being spineless, of not standing up to me, of letting this happen. My parents did this for us, she snapped one night, loud enough to be heard by half the building. We sacrificed for this family, and you just let her take it all away. Caleb said nothing, because, deep down, he knew. He knew the truth. He always had. but knowing and acting are different things. And Caleb had spent a lifetime choosing silence over confrontation, a lifetime letting someone else decide for him, until now, when the consequences had finally come home, when everything was packed and gone, when the house was cleared, keys turned over, title transferred. I went down to the lake alone. The sun was warm, the breeze was soft, ducks glided across the water like they had nowhere in particular to be. I sat on a bench, hands wrapped around a paper cup of coffee. My scarf, an old one, worn thin, fluttered slightly in the wind, and for the first time in a very, very long time, I realized something profound. I had done it. I had really truly done it. All those years I never believed I could, not because I lacked the means, not even because I lacked the right, but because I didn't think I had the strength. I'd spent decades shrinking, making myself small, quiet, convenient, easy to digest, easy to dismiss. I'd convinced myself that enduring was the same thing as loving. That sacrifice was the price of being a good mother, a good wife, a good woman. But it wasn't. It never was. Once your heart hardens, once you stop waiting for people to change, you realize how much you've been carrying, how heavy the weight was, and how unnecessary. Selling that house didn't leave me alone. It set me free. Samuel helped me establish a closed trust, something airtight, irrevocable, enough to cover my living expenses, healthcare, and long-term care for the rest of my life. No strings, no loophole, not a single penny could be touched by anyone but me. And beyond that, I set aside a portion for a cause that mattered, a donation clause. Every year a portion of my estate now goes to the West Coast Women's Justice Fund, specifically earmarked for women denied control over their own finances within marriages and families. It felt right. I wasn't here to save Caleb. I wasn't here to punish Vanessa. I was here now to support women who actually needed it, who, like me, had been told that shrinking was a virtue. Life in my community blossomed, quiet, steady, warm. I joined a few local activity groups, a walking club, a ceramics class, even met a new friend, Margaret, a fellow widow with a rescue cat named Daisy. We walked together often, and every time she grinned and said the same thing, "I like the way you walk. Like you've still got somewhere important to be." And I do. I started traveling. Nothing extravagant, no luxury cruises or first-class flights, just quiet train rides to little coastal towns. I'd bring my sketchbook, my favorite paper parasol, take photos, stroll through flea markets. On the way home, I always bought myself a slice of cream cheesecake, a reward. A small, delicious reminder that I no longer needed permission to into my life. As for them, I didn't reach out, not often anyway. Sometimes Caleb sent a text. "Mom, we moved. Liam keeps asking when you'll come see him." I always replied kindly, "I'll visit. I miss him too," because I still loved my son. I still loved my grandson, but we no longer shared the same life, and that was okay. My world was quieter now, smaller, but rich in ways it hadn't been for years. Finally, undeniably, it was mine. That evening I curled up on the sofa, a throw blanket draped over my legs, and pulled out an old photo album. One picture caught my eye. A younger me, a much younger me, sitting in a hospital chair, smiling, cradling newborn Caleb in my arms. A look of pure, blinding hope on my face, a belief that this was the beginning of something beautiful. I traced my fingers over the image, lightly, tenderly. "You did your best," I whispered to that younger version of myself. "It's okay to let go now." The sunset spilled through the windows, setting the walls aglow in honey-colored light, soft, fine. And for the first time in my life, the thought floated through me, light as air, sure as the earth beneath my feet. True happiness isn't about how many people sit beside you. It's about finally stopping the shrinking of yourself to keep the wrong ones comfortable. The days that followed weren't extraordinary in the ways people often expect when a life shifts so dramatically. There were no fireworks, no thunderclaps, no grand applause. Just mornings filled with quiet, warm cups of coffee sipped slowly by the window, the smell of fresh laundry drying in the sun, the gentle hum of life, my life unfolding on my own terms. I spent more time on the balcony, tending to the orchid Vanessa had once shoved into a dark corner like an afterthought. Now its leaves were lush, its petals unfolding in the sunlight like tiny flags of survival. Iris Bennett, a woman who had finally chosen herself. There were still echoes of the old life, of course. Text from Caleb every so often, sprinkled with cautious warmth and awkward small talk. Mom? Liam's school had a play. He played a tree. Liam says he misses your pancakes. They were gentle reminders that while boundaries had been drawn, the thread of love hadn't snapped entirely, nor did it need to. I could hold love for my grandson, and even for my son, while refusing to carry their burdens any longer. I didn't owe anyone my ruin in exchange for family. Liam sent me pictures now, selfies with missing teeth, finger-painted artwork, snapshots of his new puppy. In those moments my heart softened, but it didn't ache the way it used to. It didn't pull me back into the place where obligation had drowned me. I visited sometimes. Short visits. Ones I chose, not ones expected of. I would bring a small gift for Liam, a book, a puzzle, a sketch pad, and sit with him for an hour or two. We'd laugh. We'd talk. I'd listen to his stories. Then I would leave. No guilt. No staying too long. No falling into old roles. It was strange at first how natural it became to say, I have to get home now, and mean it. Really mean it. Because home was mine alone. As for Caleb and Vanessa, well, their lives became what happens when people who've spent years building castles on someone else's foundation suddenly find themselves standing in the dirt. They argued, made up, argued again. Caleb started working longer hours. Vanessa cycled between part-time gigs, boutique shops, online side hustles, briefly something involving handmade jewelry that lasted all of 6 weeks. Her parents, too, had come to realize the reality of being guests in someone else's cramped apartment. The polite smiles faded. The tension lingered. It wasn't my circus anymore, not my monkeys. I heard through the grapevine that Vanessa still occasionally told her version of the story, a tragic little tale where she'd been the victim of a cruel, selfish mother-in-law who abandoned her family in their time of need. I didn't care. Let her tell it. I no longer needed to defend myself in rooms I didn't even want to be in. The people who knew me, who really knew me, understood the truth. And those who didn't, well, their opinions didn't pay my bills or keep me warm at night. In the months that followed, something beautiful happened. Something so simple, yet so profound I almost didn't notice it at first. Laughter. Real, genuine laughter. Not the kind squeezed out between stress and tension. Not the brittle sort that women like me had learned to perfect. The laugh that said, it's fine. Everything's fine. Even when it wasn't. No. This laughter was light. Easy. It bubbled up in morning walks with Margaret, when Daisy the cat would chase leaves as if she were a kitten again. It bloomed in late afternoons when I sat on the lake's edge, sketching clouds that looked like ships or dragons, or sometimes absolutely nothing at all. It echoed through my kitchen when I tried and failed to bake sourdough, only to end up with something shaped like a football but twice as dense. It followed me to little coastal towns where I sipped coffee in outdoor cafes, watching strangers go about their lives, wondering if they too had finally learned how much peace could come from choosing yourself. One evening, as the sun melted into the horizon in streaks of amber and lavender, I realized something else. This quiet, simple life wasn't the consolation prize, it was the reward. Not for being a mother, not for being a wife, not for being a caregiver. The reward for being me, for surviving, for choosing, for finally understanding that love doesn't have to come wrapped in sacrifice, that family doesn't mean ownership, that boundaries aren't cruel, they are kindness to yourself. I made one final change to my will. Not out of bitterness, not out of vengeance, but clarity. Liam would inherit what was left after I passed. The trust, the home in Brookhaven, everything. In full. It would bypass Caleb and Vanessa entirely. A clean line drawn from me to him, because Liam was innocent. He hadn't chosen this. He hadn't played a role in the hurt. I wanted him to know, someday when he was old enough to understand, that love could exist without strings, that care didn't need to be transactional, that his grandmother had learned, at long last, to live on her own terms, and that he could too. The sunset deepened, the last of the light kissed the edge of the horizon. I sat quietly, fingers wrapped around my mug, heart steady. You did it, I whispered to myself, to the air, to my younger self, to every version of me that had ever doubted it was possible. You really did it. And for the first time, the very first time, the stillness didn't feel like emptiness. It felt like freedom. This story is a powerful reminder that self-worth has no expiration date. For years, Iris gave everything, her love, her time, her home, believing that family meant sacrifice. But when the people closest to her mistook her kindness for weakness, she made the boldest decision of her life, to choose herself. This isn't just a story about revenge, it's a story about boundaries, resilience, and rediscovering freedom after years of being taken for granted. It teaches us that no matter your age or circumstance, you have the right to protect your peace, reclaim your space, and live life on your terms without guilt, without apology. If this message resonates with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you won't miss more powerful, inspiring stories like this. Your support helps this channel grow and reach more people who need to hear stories of courage, transformation, and strength. And before you go, I'd love to know, which country or region are you watching from? Drop it in the comments below. Let's see how far this community of strong, resilient souls truly reaches around the world.